It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's Roy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. As always, the deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I'd greatly appreciate if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, check out the links in the description. I would appreciate it greatly. Today, we are continuing through ACR and talk about probably the commander from ACR that surprised me the most, and that's Edward Kenway, a Grixis human assassin pirate that has some pretty cool effects, and one that I think is going to be kind of tough to play against. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each tapped assassin, pirate, or vehicle you control, whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of that player's library, then exile it face down. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. The reason I think that Edward is so good, and I didn't realize how good it was until I brewed the deck, was because pirates, right, as a tribe, care so much about treasures and making treasures, and all of the payoffs for treasures, right, all come down to how many treasures you have. What I think makes Edward so good is when you start making 4 or 5 treasures each beginning of our end step, it makes our classic treasure win cons so much more easier to fulfill. The other thing is, those treasures aren't coming in tapped, meaning you can use them right away. And I think this gives us kind of a best of both worlds of what we'd want for pirates. To me, I think Edward Kenway might be one of the better pirate commanders I've ever seen. And I'd be very intrigued to see what you guys think as well. We're talking about pirates, we're talking about our vehicles. We get to actually use vehicles and get to utilize them really well. And then, of course, our treasure payoffs at the end. But as far as pirates go, we got a reprint in the secret layer of Edmo Bracket Brass as Edward, Jackdaw Captain. Other pirates +1/+1 in the beginning of your end step. You gain control of target non-land permanent if controlled by a player who has dealt combat damage by 3 or more pirates this turn. Probably the old school, most popular pirate commander, of course, before Lost Caverns. Breaches Brazen Plunder. Whenever 1 or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents. Exile the top card of each of your opponent's libraries. You may play those cards this turn. You can spend mana and a mana of any color. Eager Pillager can make a treasure, stop a creature from blocking, or exile the top card and you can play it this turn. Again, the cool part here is there's just so many good pirates, especially with all that support we got in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, which I think gives Edward so many great pieces. Captain Storm, whenever an artifact comes in, put a counter on a pirate you control. This pairs really well with Edward. Just throwing out +1/+1 counters on our board. Coercive Recruiter, whenever another pirate comes in, gain control of target creature till end of turn. It gains haste and becomes a pirate in addition to other types. The Fleet Captain, you pay 2 when it attacks if you control another non-token pirate and make a pirate with Menace. So a way to go a little bit wider and have some more pirates laying around. Forerunner, when it comes in, lets us get a pirate and put it in on top. And whenever another pirate comes in, each opponent loses a life. Not a bad ability in its own right. Gem Cutter Buccaneer makes a tap treasure whenever another pirate comes in. And then pirates, the treasures turn into equipment, which isn't that big of a deal, but hey, the tap treasure is great. We will take it. Kitesail Larcenist for each player when it comes in. Choose up to one of their target artifact or creature, and they all become treasures for as long as Kite sails out. It's not a bad ability to lock down some pretty good things. Malcolm, whenever 1 or more pirates we control deal damage to our opponents, we create a treasure token. Pretty great. Merchant Raiders. Whenever it or another pirate comes into our control, tap up to 1 target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Merchant Raiders. Great to lock things down. And we have things like Double Down, which can just copy up those pirates, the non-legendary ones mainly, but could copy all of them, depending on how much you want to put into the legendary part of it. Just doubling up them feels really great. But what's cool is the deck's not just pirates, right? It's vehicles as well. And there's so many cool vehicles. Brotherhood, Vertibird, Starfall restores the number of artifacts we control. Crew 2, a big flyer that's going to nail our opponents, probably for some good damage. Horde Hauler, 5 high with Trample, and when it deals combat damage to a player, we create a treasure token for each artifact they control. Imposter Mech comes in as a copy of a creature an opponent control, except it's a vehicle, which is pretty cool. We could take one of our opponent's big abilities and use it for ourselves. Jackdaw, of course, the namesake of Edward. When it deals combat damage to a player, we can discard our hand. If we do, draw a card for each artifact we control, which if we were down to just 1 or 2 cards and had no cards all in hand, this could be a big swing and just drawing a bunch of cards. Mindlink Mech, when it becomes crewed for the first time each turn, it becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed it, except it's a 4/3 vehicle, and has flying. Mobilizer Mech, when it becomes crewed, crews basically another vehicle and gets another vehicle ready to go until end of turn. The Belligerent, whenever it attacks, we create a treasure, and then we can look at the top card and play lands and cast spells from the top of our library until end of turn. The Indomitable gives us that Biden of Thassa Coastal Piracy effect, where we can draw cards when we deal damage to combat damage to a player, and then we can bring it back from our graveyard as long as we control 3 or more tap pirates and our vehicles. And then one of my favorite vehicles is Thunderhawk Gunship. When it ETBs, it makes 2 of those Astartes Warrior tokens, but when it attacks, all creatures we control get flying. So, great treasures mixed with great vehicles. So what I like about this is we're taking the best of the Pirates world, and we're taking some of the really great vehicles and we're pairing them together. But it's not about that. Let's talk about treasures. Let's talk about the things that are going to help us win the game. We have things like Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge. The +2 can deal X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts we control, and we gain X life. Here we go. Here's a way if we have 10 or 15 treasures laying around, just dome our opponents for big damage. You have things like Xiao Jun, which just got printed here in ACR, that we can tap 2 untapped artifacts we control to deal 1 damage to each opponent. Yes, that would stop the treasures from being used for mana, but hey, tap them down, deal damage to our opponents over time. Mechanized Production, put it on a treasure, and then if we have 8 or more treasures at the start of our upkeep, we can win the game. Alternate win condition. Pair this with Revel in Riches, which has a very similar ability. If we beginning of our upkeep, if we control 10 or more treasures, we win the game. Now this adds whenever our creatures our opponent control dies, we get a treasure. So again, here's 2 ways just to completely end the game based on the number of treasures we have. And in this deck, I don't think it's going to be very difficult. And then we can use something like Rain of Riches to get Cascade on the first thing we cast each turn that had mana from a treasure used to cast it. And this is just going to help us get more support pieces out of our deck, more vehicles, more pirates. I mean, this deck feels like it's probably just going to be chocked full of treasure, and it's going to come down to just putting the right things down at the right times. As far as so if you've watched the show, obviously I this is my version 1.0 version of the deck, so there's always things that can be learned. No deck is ever perfect, and in a lot of ways I think it just comes down to how much do you want to spin into the pirates, how much do you want to spin into other things. I like the new Admiral Brass. I think it probably works here, bringing pirates back from the graveyard and reusing them that way. Distant Melody feels good to draw some cards. Treasure Map can flip to the back where you can sack treasures to draw cards. These are cards that I like. I just couldn't find slots for them. I think this deck feels like you're already trying to balance between pirates and vehicles to begin with, and I just couldn't find a slot for everything I wanted. But I think that's what makes the most fun decks, is when you're trying to find that perfect ratio for the things you really like, and find a spot for it. But let's get into our playtest. Keeping a 3-lander with Mechanized Production, Captain Land and Restorm, which can make treasures when it attacks, Deadly Dispute, and Cultivator's Caravan. A great vehicle since it's effectively a mana rock, meaning we're always going to hopefully get a good tap trigger for Edward Kenway. We'll get that Tri-land, Grixis land down first. Let's see. If we go island here, I guess either way we're going to get Landry down next turn, right? I mean, there's nothing really we can do turn 2 anyway, so I don't really see a good play there. On 3 here, we can get Landry down, we can get Show June down. I kind of like the idea of getting Landry down here just because we can attack. I mean, on turn 3, I'm sure we'll have somebody we can attack with a 2/2 Landry and get a treasure. At least just get the game moving, get the treasures moving, get the process started, especially with holding something like Mechanized Production in our hand. We already know we have a kind of a play line through, right? Turn 4, Sulfur Falls. I like the idea of getting this Cultivator's Caravan down now. This is going to make sure that we have plenty of mana next turn. We could, go to combat if we have a good effect, or we attack with Lannery and get another treasure. We could go ahead and Daily Dispute one of the treasures to draw 2 and make another treasure. To me, it honestly doesn't feel like that bad of an idea. Mainly because then at least we have a few more things on our hand and we're kind of pushing ourselves forward. Because this turn 5, I mean, I think we're ideally just getting a mountain down right? We're getting Edward down, and we're going to make sure to tap the Cultivator's Caravan to do it. Attack with Lannery, get another treasure. And now on our end step, we're making what? 1, 2 treasures, right? 1 for the tapped Lannery, 1 for the tapped Caravan. And now we're going to start getting dangerously close to this mechanized production. I still think I wait as long as possible to play the production because we don't want our opponents to get too keyed into it. Here we get the soaring down. Mechanized production, I would do it on the treasure. And I've still got, what, 4 mana left? I guess just get Shojun down, right? We could tap the treasures for some damage this turn. Move into combat, attack with Kenway, attack with Lannery Storm, make another treasure off Lannery. And now the cool part here is, even if Lannery dies in this combat, we've still gotten all the value we needed from it. At end step, we have 1, at least 2 more tapped, right? Now we're up to 8. We could tap them all for damage for Shojun for 4, and then of course now on our upkeep, if nobody interacts, we won the game. I know it's a little cherry picked to have the mechanized production, but it just goes to show you how easy one of those games could be. If you see the Revel and Riches or if you see the mechanized production, you know what you're working for and you know how to get to it. Here we're keeping a 4-lander, 5-lander, Reign of Riches and Horde Hauler. I love Reign of Riches. It's one of those cards that can help us push really far, really quickly. Get the Path of Ancestry down here. Of course, nothing we can really do turn 1. Turn 2, we'll get the island down so that Sulphur Falls can come and tap. We have Warkite, Marauder, or Captain Storm. I like the idea of Warkite here. I don't want to get this Storm down too early because I'd hate to get it removed. Because once we start, getting Edward down and things like that, I think Storm is one of those creatures we want to try to prioritize protecting because it's just such a good card. Moving into turn 3, I mean, here it would be just the Storm, right? Might as well just get the Sunken Hollow tapped. And I guess we could get Storm down here, right? Scry 1 off the Path of Ancestry. We see Flint. Flint's a card that feels really good in here because remember, all of our pirates are outlaws. So this is one of the only non-pirate creatures in the deck just because it just prints value. I love the idea of keeping it on top because this turn we're not going to put down Kenway anyway. Put down the Archway. I would just get Flint down. And now Flint on future turns is just going to start getting cards off our opponent's libraries. We could take an attack if we want to. At this point, we're just setting up for Kenway next turn. Turn 5 here, we get Kenway down. Flint exiled 3 cards of somebody's library because we had 3 outlaws. Here, I mean, we need to attack with at least the Marauder. If we tapped with the Storm, that'd be great, but I wouldn't expect to. Just with being turn 5, there could be blockers for the Storm. But hey, a treasure comes in at end step because of Kenway. I'd probably put the counter on Orchid Marauder, get it to be a threat potentially in the air. Now, as we come back in turn 6, Flint is doming somebody for 4 cards, and we can cast spells. So, I mean, now we start the fun of if somebody has something good, we play their thing, right? Otherwise, we do our thing. Here, I probably just Reign of Riches this turn. I know the argument could be that we set up something like Port Razor for next turn. Or set up something like Brass. The reason I like Reign of Riches is because now next turn we can start cascading, which is something that could be really important. Here we get at least, I would imagine, at least 1 attack with the Marauder. I would still attack with Kenway unless somebody can really block it. So that's at least 2 more treasures. A counter on the Marauder, maybe a counter on the Storm, just making it a little bit harder to block so we can start attacking with it. Again, I like the spot we're at. If we see one of our treasures win con, that could be fun. Otherwise, I mean, Jasper's probably just printing us value at this point, right? That we can be using. 6 mana here. I'd probably put 2 of the treasures and 3 of the lands into Port Razor, which is going to cascade Roaming Throne. Jeez, calling Pirate. Now this is brutal, and we get the Port Razor down. Port Razor can't do anything this turn, but now we're just going to get more treasures down end step. Roaming Throne would actually cause Storm to go off twice. We'll put 1 on Marauder and 1 on Storm. I don't know. I remember if I got the Storm triggers for Reign of Riches, but we'll deal with that later. Then, I mean, we could always pay a treasure and get Admiral Beckett Bast down this turn as well, right? Now we try to hit somebody with 3 pirates if possible to try to do the brass effect. Otherwise, just, attack with probably these 3, right? It would be my thought. End step, we're making probably 6 treasures this turn with those 3 attacking. Again, 6 more counters, and I think you can kind of see here now where, to me, you just see this pirate deck that's just printing. It's printing money. It's printing mana that you can just use to do things. What I love about this playtest is we got to see Flint. And Flint's one of those cards that is just going to give us access to our opponent's things to spend mana on. But let me know, what do you think of Edward Kenway? To me, to be honest, I think this is the best pirate commander I've seen. It prints treasures. The vehicles work really well for trying to do. There's so many pirates that fit this style so well. In fact, I think it works with, something like Beckett Brass. It works with so many other things. But again, I think when you're focusing on the treasures, it's so easy to build your deck towards some of those alternate win cons and some ways to finish the game. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys next.